So for example, suppose we had f of x equals 5 e to the x. What happens to that 5? Close. Is that a constant, or is that a constant times a function? It's a constant times a function. If it were a standalone constant, then it goes away. But if it's a constant times a function, what happens to that constant? What happens to Lindsay Lohan anytime she goes, she gets in trouble? Nothing. Nothing happens. Nothing important anyways. Because then she just cries about it. So what happens to that 5? Stays right there because it's a constant times a function. So the derivative would say you ignore the 5 and then take the derivative of the function. What's the derivative of e to the x? E to the x. It's not, so don't confuse this and this. This is an exponential function. Where's the variable? In the exponent. This is a power function. Okay, so the derivative of this one would be ex to the e minus 1. This is exponential. The derivative is just e to the x. Please note the difference. Brain on drugs. So it all depends where the variable is at. How about part B? How can we rewrite e to the x over 2? Because otherwise I'd have to use a quotient rule. Well, dividing by 2 is the same thing as what? Multiplying by a half. So it's easier to look at it as 1/2 e to the x plus 4x plus 5. I didn't take the derivative yet. There's no prime. So now let's take the derivative. What happens to that 1/2 attached to that e to the x? Stays there. So what's the derivative of 1/2 e to the x? 1/2 e to the x. Plus 4x. Notice it's no longer exponential. We're back to our power rule. Plus 4. And what's the derivative of 5? 0. 1/2 e to the x plus 4. So a to the x, exponential, x to the a, power. Confusing? Yes. Part A, 7 to the x. Notice we'll have to use our second rule because our base is not e. So for the derivative, you get back what you start with, 7x times the natural log of the base. What's the base? 7 times the natural log of 7. B. What rule would we have to use first? What named rule would we have to use first? The product rule. Because the outermost function is a product. So for the product rule, let me just recopy the function real quick. E to the x would be the first. Would be the second. What's the format for the product rule? First times derivative of the second times the derivative of the first. Good. So g prime of x would be the first e to the x times the derivative of the second, which is just like part A. What's the derivative of 8 to the x? Good. Is that okay? Plus the second, 8 to the x, times, what's the derivative of e to the x? E to the x. Ah. Reminds me of making cookies with Grandma. It's so amazing. So comforting. And Grandma and I would make exponential function cookies all the time. No. Well, you could. Like they both have an 8 to the x, e to the x. And then if you pull that out, you'd have the natural log of 8 plus 1. So does that look any better? No. Hopefully Course Compass doesn't make you do that. Good luck with that. Notice, the first rule is a special case of the second rule. Because if that was an e there, you'd have e to the x times the natural log of e. What is the natural log of e? 1, because, remember, that's a base of e. I said when the base equaled the argument, you just get 1. We have f of x equals 6 to the x, then squared. It's like a power to a power. It's like if you took a cake and put another cake on top of it. And then like another cake. That's a lot of cake. It's sort of like a wedding cake. Not that exciting anymore. That's okay. Part A. Notice we have the form of function, a number to a function. So 6 is our a, and x squared is our g of x. So 6 is our a, and x squared is our g of x. So let's go piece by piece. So the derivative would be, the first one is you get back what you start with, 6 to the x squared times natural log of 6 times the derivative of g of x. What's the derivative of x squared? 2x. So a to the g of x times the natural log of a times g prime of x. Leave that alone. It does clean up a little bit. We're not going to. Just leave it alone. Try part B on your own. G of x is e to the 3x minus 5. Okay, so someone walk me through this. What's the first part? Okay, we started off as a duet there. It sort of ended there. That's okay. Times, someone else? Natural log of e times the derivative of the exponent, 3. Now, part of this does clean up. What's the natural log of e? 1. So if you want, you can put the 3 in front of the e there as your final answer.